Hi, scholars. This is Mrs. D, and I get to talk to you about math this week. So, today, because it's Monday, we're going to look at lesson 12.5 comparing heights. Now, I know that you have been learning about comparing lengths with Mrs. Chin. So, today we're going to do something very similar, but a little bit different in our lesson. When you see the lips, you know that that means we're going to be looking at our academic words for this lesson. So let's read those together. Taller, shorter, and height. So height is how tall something is when it's standing straight up. When we look at the top of something and we see how tall or short it is, we can measure the height. So if you look at our two people standing there in our picture, on the left you can see that the stick figure is taller than the person on the right. The person on the right is shorter than the person on the left. He has a shorter height on the right side of our picture. Okay, so let's look at our plan for today in our lesson. So when we see that flower, we know that we're looking at our plan. So just like when we measured the length, we are going to line up our objects. In this case, we may be standing next to something, or we may be putting two objects next to each other that are standing up. And then we're going to compare the object's height. We're going to say, this object is taller than that object. When I stand up, am taller than a chair. The table is taller than the sofa. The pillow is shorter than the sofa if I stood it up next to each other. So those are examples of how I'm providing reasons for which object is taller, shorter, or the same. Because scholars, in our example, in our rainbow fish video that we're going to watch, you might see an example of something that is the same. So let's go check out those examples.
This is the kitchen in Bob's house. What do you see in Bob's kitchen?
So scholars, let's look at the objects in Bob's kitchen. What do we see in his house?
There are 2 chairs, a table, a cabinet, and a refrigerator. Bob sees that some of the objects are short and some are tall. Bob compares the refrigerator and a chair. Which is taller?
So scholars, we're going to use our academic words to describe and use examples to say which is taller, the refrigerator and the chair. Go ahead and think in your brains, which one do you think is taller?
The refrigerator is taller than the chair. How do you know?
How do we know, scholars? How do we know which one is taller? Remember when we were looking at our lesson on our poster, we said that whatever the top of something is, when it's standing up nice and tall, when we see the top, which one is higher up? Which one has the greater height? So which one has the greater height? The refrigerator or the chair?
The top of the refrigerator is higher than the top of the chair. Next, Bob compares the cabinet and a chair. Do you think one object is taller than the other?
Do you think one of them is taller than the other? Or scholars, do you think that they might be the same? So in your answer in your brain, you can think the chair is taller, the chair is shorter, or the chair is the same as the cabinet. What do you think?
Bob thinks the cabinet is as tall as the chair. The cabinet is not higher than the chair. The chair is not higher than the cabinet. They are the same height. There are other things in the kitchen you can compare. Which object is the shortest?
So scholars, to discover what object is the shortest, we're going to look at the top of everything in Bob's kitchen, and we're going to decide which top has the smallest height. Which one is the smallest or the shortest?
The table is the shortest. Is Bob taller than the table? Is Bob taller than the cabinet? What do you think?
So scholars, is Bob taller than the table? Is he taller than the cabinet? Or is he shorter than the table and shorter than the cabinet? Or is his height the same? What do you think?
You can see if you are as tall as your friend. You can compare to find out if your teacher is taller than you. Try it on your own.
So scholars, we're going to back it up just a little bit so that we can answer the questions. When we look at Bob, we can answer that question. So look at Bob and look at the cabinet, and let's say the answer together. Bob is taller than the cabinet. And then let's look at him next to the table. Look at the top of and see which one has greater height. Bob is taller than the table. Or we could say it the other way. The table is shorter than Bob. There's lots of ways that we can use evidence to compare objects and compare their height. So for your work today, scholars, you are going to look at your black workbook, your black math workbook, and you're going to find lesson 12.5, as you can see here on our poster, lesson 12.5, and you're going to do your assignments for lesson 12.5. All right, scholars, we will talk to you soon.